What's going on, you guys? You're tuned into the Cutting Room Knife Review. I'm your host, Garrett, and today we are checking out the Null Vandal. Now, I've been looking forward to this knife for a long time, you guys. As soon as I saw this released on the Null website, I knew that I really wanted to pick it up. I've been a big fan of Null knives for a long time, and when I first got their Null Raiden R2, I instantly just fell in love with their knives. I saw this was coming out, and it was a much bigger knife than Raiden R2 was. I could just tell on paper how big this was going to be, and just judging by all the features of it, I knew that it was a knife that I was going to want to check out, and that you guys would probably want to check out too. And very luckily, I was able to get my hands on this knife, and it had sold out in less than a minute. What's up, guys? I'm Garrett. You're tuned in to the Cutting Room Knife Review, where I review knives, blades, and all things sharp. Please like and subscribe so I can keep bringing you more killer knife content. So this was not a pre-order knife, you guys. This knife went live, and the first shot at this knife, everybody just got an equal shot at it. And you had to be there and get one, or you didn't get one. And so, yeah, I ended up getting there the minute that this knife released, and I knew I wanted the purple camo carbon. Yeah, the purple camo carbon fiber scales, and the purple camo carbon fiber scales sold out in less than a minute. I bought a knife, one of these, from one of my friends, and luckily he wanted the black micarta version of this knife, and it didn't sell out as fast because when I went back to order the second knife, these were already gone. So the gold and black and the purple camo carbon black both sold out incredibly fast. I know that all the stock sold out in just minutes. So I feel very lucky to have this knife. I know that the pre-orders have opened back up, and I think actually sold out already. But the second run of this knife is going to be coming out. So hopefully, if you didn't get your hands on this during the first run, you got your hands on this during the second release of it, because it is a really unique and cool knife. It might be one of the coolest ones that Null has put out. So let's check out the Null Vandal, its specifications and materials that make up this awesome knife. So the Null Vandal, this is a big knife, girl, guys. She is a big girl. And so in my version of this knife, we have a belt satin blade. We have black DLC for the titanium portion of the handles, and then the scales on top of that black DLC are going to be purple camo carbon. Okay, the hardware is titanium, and that's going to be anodized in a plum purple color. We have a black DLC pocket clip. And then one of the coolest features about this knife is I love this backspacer, you guys. The backspacer is also in plum purple, which is going to be anodized that color. I don't know exactly what voltage plum purple is, but that's what they're calling it on their website. So that's what we're going to call it here. They also anodize the thumb studs, the same plum purple color. Super cool. I love how it all matches. I love how it goes together. I'm a big fan of purple knives and just in general. So getting my hands on this and in this finish is like, it's been really cool for me. Overall, guys, this is a big old knife. This is 8.75 inches in overall length. Let me say that again. 8.75 inch overall length. This is pretty much a pocket sword. We have a 3.85 inch blade with a 3.7 inch cutting edge. That is a whole lot of knife. We have a bit of a thick blade thickness to it. It's a beast. We have 0.145 blade thickness, but we have this hollow ground blade, so it's going to stay real thin and real slicey through a whole lot of this blade, but it's also going to be a beast. It's going to be able to take a lot of hard use. It's going to be incredibly strong. 0.145 is pretty thick up through here. You're getting into, almost, fixed, fixed blade range. Not quite there, but it's thicker than a lot of its counterparts are in the folder world. So this blade is made out of Vanax Super Clean. It's my favorite steel, just my favorite steel out there. It's incredibly corrosion resistant. It is very tough. It takes a great edge. It stays incredibly sharp. It's kind of the best jack of all trades steel I think there is. My other Null knives are in MagnaCut, and I'm really excited to see that Null went with Vanax for this knife. This is a huge chunk of Vanax, but I love not worrying about if your knife is going to rust at all. MagnaCut's in the same boat. It's really tough. It does not corrode, but I just tend to think that Vanax is like my thing. I love the grain to the Vanax steel. It's just my favorite. So really happy they released this knife in Vanax. Um, we have an HRC of 60 to 61 on this knife. And so if you're looking at the heat treatment of knives, MagnaCut has to be more like 63, 64, 65 on its HRC to really shine as, you know, a steel. You can have MagnaCut at 61, 60, 61, and it's not bad, but Vanax is going to beat the hell out of it at 60, 61. Vanax shines at 60 to 61. So this is a proper heat treatment for Vanax, whereas if we're going to have a MagnaCut blade, he'd want it above 63. So great job to Null and Riot for doing the 60 to 61 HRC Vanax blade. It's just what it's supposed to be. So our handle length is 4.9 inches, and that's actually a pretty good balance. There's a whole lot of blade for how much handle this is, but 4.9 inches is plenty to get my hand on. I can choke up on this knife. I can hold back on this knife. There's plenty of handle for my big extra large hand. If you do have small hands, this knife is probably going to be pretty big for you. But if you like large knives, or you are somebody who has big hands, this knife is kind of a dream. It is incredibly ergonomic. This cutout and then this choil right here are both fitting really well in my hand. Whether I choke up on it or I hold back on the knife, it's really comfy. I do like the choke up point. It allows me to get that kind of like pistol grip with my index finger, where I can get this really good squeeze between my thumb, my index finger, putting my middle finger back behind it. I've talked about this with the Vosti knives, where I get this grip that's like this, and I can just squeeze right here so well, and it's just locked into my hand, and I have so much blade out in front of my hand that I don't even know what to do with it. It's this is a wild knife. It's a big one. I'm in awe. I really dig it. If you can't tell, I'm a big fan of this knife. So the handle thickness is only 0.53 inches thick, which is pleasantly thin. You would think with such a big knife that you might wind up with a real chunky handle, and really not so much. It's really comfy, even with the pocket clip in there. Once again, the titanium backspacer, it goes up really high. A lot of times we find backspacers just being down on this little part of the knife. Null does a really nice job of, going the extra mile and really filling in this space, this titanium backspacer. It looks great. I love the arrows that are milled into it. It's just a great looking knife. And the handle looks every bit as good as this blade does. It's a high-end knife, you guys. It really screams just quality and just a gorgeous, gorgeous, good-looking knife. So we have grade 5 6AL 4V titanium for the frame. And so this is a bolster lock knife. What a bolster lock is we see it a lot of times on carbon fiber knives, where instead of having a frame lock, where you'd have a big cutout that goes all the way down here, it's still a frame lock, but part of it is covered up by the carbon fiber, and we have this bolster up here of just this is the only part that titanium sticks out of. The rest of it has a cutout, and the carbon fiber sits into like an inset into the titanium. So this is not a liner in here. This is one piece of titanium that goes out and gets thicker out here, and there's just a cutout for the carbon fiber to sit down into it. But so the frame goes down here, and it is a frame lock, but most of it gets covered by the carbon fiber, so it turns it into a bolster lock. And I really like how that works. For the knives, it allows for actually a pretty easy press right here with the bolster. It's comfortable for my thumb. I think it looks really good. I think it keeps the clip side of the knife looking a lot closer to the show side, and keeps the clip side looking really fresh and really nice. Lots of knives have bolster locks from the Brown Cortex XL to we have a bolster lock on the Jason Guthrie Wii, another great example of a bolster lock. It's just a really cool lock. It's actually the lock that's going to be on my knife that is coming out here at the end of this year, and hopefully soon I'll have the prototype of it to show you guys. But I'm a big fan of bolster locks. I think it looks great. Keeps the knife looking really fresh and still about the same strength as and same like physics as you'd have on a frame lock. We have a weight of this knife, and it is under 5 ounces. It's 4.76 ounces, which for as big as this knife is feather light. This knife feels incredibly light in the hands for how big it is. Now, 4.76 ounces wouldn't be a light knife if it was a smaller knife, but because of how big this thing is, it really is. It really does feel very light in the hands. It's easy to maneuver, and it's fairly light in the pocket. It doesn't, the weight's distributed really well in this knife, and it doesn't cause any feeling of like being cumbersome. For such a big knife, it is very, very remarkably easy to maneuver and really light feeling. So I really dig that. Now, let's check out this blade and how it's ground and all the features of it. So this Vanax blade is hollow ground, but it also has a compound grind to it, and it also has a fuller ground into it. And there's a lot going on here. So for the main slicing portion of this knife, we have this long flat edge, and it is hollow ground as we see right here. The hollow ground grind is really nice. It's done incredibly well. It's going to allow for all this portion of the knife to do any kind of pull cuts, being able to slice through materials very well. It's very sharp, very slicey. And then what we have is a flat grind here on, it's like a modified Tonto, or Hinderer calls it a Sponto, which means spear point Tonto. And this really isn't a spear point because of how this top of the knife is. It's like I want to call it almost like a harpoon right here, but like this part of the knife right here is a spear point, but it's also got this cutout right here. Like it's wild. It's like a drop point / spear point / Tonto / Spont. I don't know what to call this blade. I really do not know what to call this blade, but what it is that's so cool about it is it gives a different cutting edge right here than it does right here, and you can do different work with the knife. And you have this flat grind right here on the curve that you're able to do precision work with. You have a point that you're going to be able to pierce with incredibly well. You have this extra material right here to keep it pretty rigid and strong through the point. And we have this extra thick spine to keep the whole blade incredibly strong and rigid through all of its 3.85 inches. However, this hollow grind that spans a good portion of this blade keeps it really thin and slicey. It's a complete jack of all trades. Now, it reminds me a lot of Hinderer's Sponto. So this is my Hinderer XM18. It's a non-flipper, which is really a cool Hinderer if you can get your hands on one, but it's a Sponto grind. And so if you look at the Hinderer, I'm not sure if you can really see this in the light, there is it's all flat ground, but you have the straight edge right here, and then you have a different compound grind right here in the spear point to make it a Tonto right here. So you have this kind of flat edge and a whole secondary edge, then the main primary cutting edge. This one does it, but it does it with a hollow grind. So we have a flat grind and a hollow grind. And all above that, we have this fuller cut out of it, which is going to take weight away from the knife and also allow for you to do reverse flicking with, or to do a thumb roll if you felt like not using the thumb studs for whatever reason. But it allows your finger to basically run along anywhere in here and catch this ridge of the knife. And I'm way down on the knife right here, and I can flip it open. And that was kind of a weak flip, but you guys get the idea. Nobody's perfect. I'm not going to cut that out, but you can flip. You have a lot of ability to just utilize this blade. What you can also do is you can really jump up on this blade and pinch in this fuller and get your forefinger up here, and then you have this pinch grip on this knife, and you can use it almost like it's a really tiny blade. Almost like it's a really small knife, and really get up in and do some really precision cutting with the pinch grip. Just like our mustache friend always likes to say, it's a pinch grip all day, right? Right, Tri-State? Anyway, I'm a huge fan of this blade. Absolute, just huge fan of this blade. We have ceramic ball bearings for the action. We have a ceramic detent. This is a Riot OEM, and it's every bit of the action you would expect from a Riot OEM. It is absolutely outstandingly smooth, oiled glass smooth. It just drops right down. No need for a shake. Snaps right out. You close it, just closes. Snaps out. Closes. Snaps out. Closes. It has a nice little stop right before the end. So there's like a little detent right here. See that? And then it pops off the detent again right there. So we have a little snap close at the end. A little snap right there. And then we also have this little, once it passes this tiny little detent right there, it just closes down easy. Fluid action, just absolutely amazing fluid action. The big blade does help. The weight of the blade does help carry that blade through the travel of the action and allow it to be very smooth. But those bearings are incredible. The way this knife is set up and balanced is incredible. It pivots just great. There was some serious thought that went through the designing of this knife and how this blade travels and how smooth the action is. The lockup is absolutely rock solid. This knife is made for some hard use. It is, you should not be afraid to throw whatever, work comes your way with this knife. This knife's going to tackle it. I have no reason to think that this knife wouldn't be able to handle any job you throw at it. It has a lot of blade, man. It has a lot of blade, and you're going to be able to do a lot with that blade. So let's take a look at this knife compared to other knives that are its peers. So, as required by law, we will compare the Null Vandal to Spyderco Para 3. This is my Spy 27 Para 3 with my Meton Boss scales on it. It is heavier than hell, but man, it sure looks good. The Null Vandal is, of course, just a beast compared to the Para 3. It is much larger than it by over an inch. We have the Paramilitary 2, and this is the Tonto version of the Paramilitary 2. An absolute gorgeous knife. Hard to get your hands on. If you can find one, get you one. If you can't, I don't blame you. It's hard. They're expensive. And it is bigger than the Paramilitary 2, making this not a medium-sized knife. This is a large knife. Now, typically, if you haven't been with me through the episodes, if a knife is smaller than the Para 3, I consider it a compact or a small knife. This is basically where medium starts. I call it schmedium, small medium. This is the end of where medium ends. This is large medium. much larger than a paramilitary 2, and you're into large knife territory. And we are well into large knife territory with the Vandal. Now, we can compare it to the Hinderer XM18, and this is a 3.5 inch XM18, and we are larger than it. We have about the same size handle, but we have a 3.8 inch, 3.85 inch blade, versus a 3.5 inch blade. So this is about the large size of medium as well. We look at them and we're going to have like the choke up points at the same point. We just have some more blades sticking out at the end of this one. You're actually going to have a very similar handle experience between these two knives. I feel like they hold very similar. It chokes up very similar. This knife holds very similar to it. Now, the scales and the thickness of the Hinderer, this is a heavier knife. It feels a bit more beefy in your hands, but how it's held in the hands and just like the contours of where the choke up point is to the blade feels very similar. I find these knives to be quite similar. This is the knife that I kind of thought of when I first picked up this knife. I was like, oh, this is like a XM18, but just, like a little bit like more refined in the handle and a little bit bigger on the blade. Now we have its fellow Null knife counterpart, the Raiden R2, which is dwarfed by it, absolutely dwarfed by it. I reviewed this Raiden R2 earlier this year, and I was been a big fan of it. Now, this is not a knife that I can choke up on. It's basically a single handle knife. You can get a little bit farther up on it, but not really. This, if you have a smaller hand, if you want a more traditional style blade, you want something a little bit cheaper, this Raiden R2 is a great choice. It comes in Magna Cut. We have another great carbon fiber finish, but on this side we have all titanium and a frame lock. So that's kind of what you're getting with the bolster lock, is you're able to have carbon fiber on this side as well. A little bit simpler of a knife, quite a bit smaller of a knife. Both have just scream Null knives. They have so many similarities in the fit and finish, and just feel this this fuller right here. Excuse me, I could not remember the word fuller to save my life, but this fuller right here is very Null Knives-ish. The carbon fiber finish is very Null Knives-ish. The action feels very similar. You can tell they're running on the same kind of bearings. Has the same kind of action. You can just tell they're made by the same people. Now we have the Wee Guthrie, and if you're not familiar with the Wee Guthrie, it is an absolutely amazing knife. In my opinion, it's a little too big for its britches. It is even bigger than this Null Knives Vandal. It is a great, beautiful knife, beautiful finish, beautiful hand satin blade, great carbon fiber on the handle. Once again, a bolster lock. This is my first entry into bolster locks in my collection, but it is just simply a gigantic knife. It's bigger than the Null Vandal. But these knives, this knife once again reminds me of the Vandal. I just find the Vandal to be a bit more usable than this knife. This knife, I believe, is like 9.25 inches, and it's just gigantic. It's just a little too big. But once again, familiar knives, not too far off from each other. If you're familiar with this knife, you probably will like this knife. Now we get down into the Kunwu Excalibur. Now, once again, another big knife, and while the Null Vandal is a little bit longer than it, if you're comfortable with the Excalibur, you're going to be comfortable with the Null Vandal. Both have similar choke-up points. If you look at where, our choils are, they're basically in the same spot. We're going to hold this knife in the same spots as we're going to hold this knife. And our hands are going to feel similarly on them. We have a little bit more blade on the Null Vandal, but if you like this knife and the size of this knife and the Excalibur, you probably are going to enjoy the size of this knife and the Null Vandal. And last but not least, we have the Chris Reeves Umnumzon. And if you're an Umnumzon fan, you probably will be a fan of this Null Vandal. They are very different knives. Very different knives, but they're similarly shaped. We have hollow ground Tontos. This is a Sponto, but you're working with, kind of the same idea. You have two edges to work with. They're both hollow ground. If you're comfortable with a knife that is this big, you are probably going to be able to be comfortable with a knife that is this big. It just, once again, has this kind of extra long blade to it. So those are kind of my comparisons to what knives you might have or might have experience with that might lend you to thinking, well, is the Vandal going to be for me? And really, I think the Vandal's for you if you can tame the size. If your hand is big enough to hold on to this knife, I think you're going to love this knife. I don't see a reason that you wouldn't. There's just so much going on and so much to love. If you're into heavy duty knives, this knife is just absolutely chunky up here. It has all kinds of features, multiple blading, grind angles, multiple styles of grinds, thick spine to it. It's just beefy and strong. It's going to be able to take on whatever task you have in front of it. If you're into fidgeting with your knives, this knife is smooth as silk. It's actually incredibly fidgety for being such a gigantic knife. I find myself playing with this knife all the time. As soon as I took it out of its box, you guys probably saw the unboxing. I've just been playing with it. It's hard to put in my pocket because I just want to be sitting here flicking the knife around. It's easy to do so. It's easy to take the fuller and just reverse flick it. I have a ton of fun with this knife. If you're into futuristic looking knives, I think this knife, just like the Null Raiden R2, has a very futuristic feel to it. This blade shape, it doesn't quite have all the handle on this knife. This one just feels so cyberpunk and futuristic, and I think the bronze really lends itself to that. But this Null kind of carries that aesthetic along with it. Has some really cool design shapes and features to it that keep this a very modern looking knife. If you're into modern looking knives, I don't think you can escape from Null. I mean, this is one of those knives that is just, very, very modern looking, and I find it very aesthetically pleasing. I can't pick apart a piece of this knife that I don't like about it, other than the fact that it's gigantic. Guys, there's not much to this knife that I don't think there is to like. Null put together a knife that is really, really good. It's just huge. If I was to recommend something to Null for this knife, it would be what I usually say the exact opposite to Vosteed. Every Vosteed knife that I get, I think, man, this is a really cool knife. I think that you should, I just wish that it was a little bit bigger. Take the Croc, for instance. Now, a much cheaper knife. We're not even in the same universe as far as, quality goes. But this Croc I have to choke up on for it to fit in my hands. I really like this knife for the price. I think it's great, but I want this knife to be bigger. Vosteed, make a bigger frickin' knife. People with big hands just can't hold on to your knives. This is a great design, but I don't really want to keep buying your knives because none of them are big enough for me. Now, the opposite is with this Null. Thank the Lord I have a giant hand. Some of you guys on Reddit have commented more than some of you. A lot of people on Reddit have commented man, you must have, giant freaking hands. I do. Big old extra large mitt, big hands. You know what they say about dudes with big hands? They wear big gloves. That was a bad joke. Sorry about that, guys. But this knife fits me. This knife is comfortable in my hands. I don't know if this knife would be comfortable in somebody who has a small to medium sized glove. My wife would not be able to use this knife correctly. My wife would be holding this knife like this. She has a tiny little hand. This knife would just be an absolute machete in her hand. I think Null does a really good job of making this not a pocket sword in your pocket. for as big as it is, it really doesn't take up a huge amount of space in your pocket. So if Null was able to size this knife down and make like a Vandal that was 15-20% smaller, make it 3.5 inches on the blade, make it 3.35 inches on the blade, make it, you could even keep the handle pretty close to the same size, make it, instead of being, 4.9, make it 4.5, maybe 4.4, just make it a little bit smaller, exact same shape, exact same size, just take everything and just say minus 15%, minus 20%. And you'd have this knife that I think works for everybody. And that's going to be the only detriment to some people is they're going to say, this knife is gigantic. I can't carry this thing. It's too big for my work environment. It's too big for this or that. And like, if you have a small hand, you're probably right. It's going to be a hard knife to carry. I think about using this knife on the job site. I haven't really brought it into my job site yet. I just had a daughter, and so I've been off work for 2 weeks, spending time with my family, getting to know my daughter. And I plan on taking this knife into the job site and using it. And there's definitely some tasks that I'm going to be like, well, this is a whole bunch of steel in front of my hand. Like, I don't really need all this. I'm used to working along something along the lines of this, where, I don't need all this steel in front of it. And for me, that's kind of few and far between. I'm usually able to work with whatever I got, and I don't ever really have a big hard time finding use for a big knife. But it's also because I have a big mitt. Like, I have a hand that can handle this knife. So, Noel, you made this great knife, but it's gigantic. And if you made one that was, like 75%, 80% the size of this, I think you'd have a winner in that too. Not that you need to change this knife, just maybe if you did a knife in the future, like this is the Raiden R2. You updated the Raiden, you added some stuff to it, and you made this knife. It's not that much different from the original Raiden, but there are some changes. Maybe you make, a Vandal Mini or a Vandal, maybe not Micro. That makes it sound too small. But you guys get what I'm saying. Make it just a little bit smaller, and I think you'd have another winner of a knife. But there's so many features of this knife that are so cool. I hope that everybody that has gotten their hands on this knife has enjoyed it as much as I have, because from just the aesthetics being perfect, to the ergonomics being just buttery, just melts into my hand, the action being just, oiled glass action, just so much fun to flick open this knife. To the blade just being this awesome piece of Vanax that has such an amazing grind to it. The grind they did on this knife is just stellar. You don't see people putting in this many compound grinds into a knife, putting this much into just a knife, grind, this much thought into what it can do. This knife is capable of so many different cuts because of how they ground this knife blade. It's cool. It's a win. And I want to see everybody that comes across this knife find it as useful as I do and find it as cool as I do. Now, not everybody, feels the same way about every knife. I'm sure there's going to be some hater out there. And to that, I say, fight me in the comments, because this knife's awesome. But as you can tell, I think this knife's a win. Vosteed, make bigger knives. Null, maybe make a little bit smaller version of this, but that's what I have to say about it. It's the same qualm that I have with Vosteed as I have with this Null knife. A little bit difference in size could make all the difference of making the absolute perfect knife. So Null Knives, you hit one out of the park. You've created an absolute winner. It's a big old beast of a winner. But for somebody like me, it works. I hope this works out for everybody else that bought it. So this has been the Null Vandal. I'm your host, Garrett, with the Cutting Room Knife Review. And until next time, you guys, stay sharp.